So I just finished watching the final episode of Invincible season 3, and safe to say I was very eager to watch the episode, and I was left very impressed by just how well this season has gone by. So this video I'm just going to be discussing, kind of like a little review of Invincible season 3, letting you know my thoughts on it, and of course some of the thoughts of other, say, reviewers that weren't exactly happy with this season for whatever reason. But let's just address the entire thing right now. So, Invincible season 3 had just ended its season finale yesterday. I watched it with my brother. We both had a great time watching the episode. It was a really good episode. The animation was just on peak. The fight was amazing. The story, of course, is great. Now, as far as the whole entire season of Invincible goes, the entire season was actually really amazing. And I highly recommend for anybody who has not seen Invincible to start watching right now, because I honestly think you're missing out on a lot of stuff, especially with Invincible and stuff like that, just in general. The story, the writing, the characters, the voice actors, so far a lot of it has done an amazing job, and especially here in season 3, which I'm gonna go into a lot of spoilers into this episode because, or at least in this video, I'm gonna go into a lot of spoilers because I kind of want to address some stuff that I feel like, I have a little bit of nitpicks and stuff like that and here and there, but overall doesn't hinder the entire season of Invincible for me. But it definitely does that for some others. So I'm gonna go into spoiler territory. So here's your warning right now. This is your big spoiler warning. So if you have not watched Invincible season 3, or if you not even watched Invincible in general, I highly recommend you watch the show before you come back to me. And with that being said, here we go. So, season 3 just ended with a big banger. Invincible has fought against Conquest. And honestly, it was probably one of the better fights, if not the best fight of Invincible thus far. Of course, some will probably debate whether the fight between, Nolan and Mark was probably the best one. But overall, I think this one just had more, I guess, more intense stake. Well, I guess they both have intense stakes in their own regard, but this one was just hyped up to be good, and they delivered. So I'm very happy that they actually delivered on that front. So very happy with that. I want to address some of the good stuff that happened in this season in particular, because I feel like what a lot of people tend to focus on is on the negatives, which I will focus on one negative aspect of this show, and maybe just a couple nitpicks here and there. But let me just talk about the good stuff. The writing is probably the best it's ever been throughout this season. It's better than the last 2 seasons by far. We have a lot more development with the characters. Probably ones that you probably imagine that they probably wouldn't be able to get any screen time or any development. Considering maybe, like, there might be their deaths, or maybe just they just don't have enough time to put focus on them for the meantime. And so it's very amazing just how well they've written the characters this season, with particularly with 2 characters, probably one more than the other. But one character, one of the first characters I want to talk about is Rex Blode. As you know, Rex throughout the entirety of Invincible has been a pretty mean, very, like, I wouldn't say mean, but very cocky, very, hateable person. He's just a guy who you just don't want to be around. He's just a guy who you look at him, you see the way he talks, you'd be like, hey man, get off of me. You're not like me. You're not this. You're not that. He's that type of guy. He's like, he could be he could be an a-hole when he needs to be. And honestly, that was a really good part of him, even in, like, early Invincible seasons. So for him to be, and then in the second season, he had this connection after the fight against the Lizard League, where he literally almost died. He gets shot in the head, and then of course he miraculously survives it, beats up the Lizard League leader, and then gets hospitalized. And throughout that time, he actually has a bit of, like, a epiphany, where he's like near death experience. He had his life flash before his eyes, as he said, and he started to change his mentality around. He started to try to be more nicer. He's trying to be more in tune with his teammates from the Guardians of the Globe. And for what it's worth, he is starting to develop as a character. And season 3 just does an amazing job with his character as well. He gets more friendly with Mark. He starts to regret some of his life decisions, and even then, he starts to find a new love interest in Ray, Shrinking Ray, which is one of the characters that almost dies as well in the fight against the Lizard League. And because of that, they have kind of this connection and this and that, and they start to hit it off, and they actually become a couple, which is really fun. It's really nice to see, where you actually feel happy for Rex. Now, of course, this all led to the big moment in episode 7 when in the Invincible War, where Rex had his big moment to take down one of the Invincibles, and ended up sacrificing himself and dying as a result. Now, of course, when he died, that was a pretty big significant moment in the show. Um, and I will say that for what it's worth, it actually does a really good job pretty much finishing off Rex in a great way, where he literally does the most selfless thing that he's ever done, which takes, basically blows himself up alongside in one of the evil Invincibles. And he does the most heroic thing he's done, probably. Well, I wouldn't say the most heroic thing. He's done plenty of heroic things in the past, anyways. Like he's a hero by contract, basically, at this point. But now this is the first time where he looked like he became a hero for the sake of being it, And even has his like goodbye message to Ray and stuff like that, which is really cool. And they had his funeral at the final season and the final episode. So he's one of the great characters that got plenty of good development. So that's already a big plus. Now, the other character that took a big part of the entire season 3 is Cecil. Now, Cecil, I've never seen a character, or at the very least, we've seen it a couple of times, but that a character is written so good when people are literally agreeing with his morally gray standards, where they can disagree or agree, but just like how Cecil likes it, there's always that little gray area. And so when you have conversations like this, how good of a character Cecil is, and how his mentality and his beliefs, or rather his way of working to save the world, has to really find the middle ground. There are some things that you have to do in order to save the world, but you can't accommodate for the good, and that's one of the big things for Cecil, right? He wants to be the person who saves the world, but he can't exactly be a good guy to do so either. He has to do some underhanded tactics. He has to be very, very morally gray. He has to do some shady stuff. And this is one of the big talking points in season 3, because as you know, he spares D.A. Sinclair from the first season, the one who uses men to pretty much alive people, and puts them into robotic forms to create these robot hybrids, the reanimate as they call them. And in the first season we see this guy, and he's a pretty terrible person. He's a very heinous person. But then when they capture him, the GDA doesn't put him in prison. Instead, they reform him and have him make more of those creatures using dead veterans and stuff like that, in order to create these robotic monsters to fight potential threats, like, for example, the Viltrumites, or just any big monster that comes away, And they show this mentality big time when they save them from Dr. Seismic in episode 2, I believe. And Mark, of course, doesn't like this. He hates the whole idea of Cecil using former villains, these villains basically, and reforming them to do stuff for the greater good of humanity, for saving the planet. He believes that, Mark believes that these people should be thrown in jail and be locked up forever, while Cecil believes that if they have the talent to work for the GDA, you don't waste that talent. You don't put them in prison and lock them forever. You use those talents for the gain of the world, basically. And that was the concept behind D.A. Sinclair and the new Dark. I forgot his name. Shadow. I forgot the name of the Batman lookalike, but they used him as the example. Basically, those two. One of them was a murderer, and the other one is, I guess, he's also a murderer in the sense, but he turns people into robots, so that's one thing. But Cecil doesn't put them in jail as you would expect anybody to do so. Instead, he uses them to to create, more reanimin. He uses his talent to create more robots to protect the world, while the other one joins the Guardians and becomes a hero, like a superhero, globally known, right? Um, and we see this dynamic play out, and people are constantly on war as to whether Cecil's logic makes sense. And we see his backstory as well as to how this happened, and you can see that his former boss does the same thing. And Cecil had that same mentality that Mark did. He did not like the idea of, you know, the bad guys being, the people who have actually killed people being reformed to fight alongside the GDA now. But as time went by and he starts to realize the reality of the world, he starts to realize, the one quote that he keeps mentioning: you're either the good guy or you're the guy who saves the world. You can't be both. And that's a line that's pretty much like permanent throughout this season, which strains Mark's and Cecil's relationship. And I think that's what makes Cecil such a great character, because that that he has the best intentions for the world, but he's also a very smart man who is willing to do anything in his power to save the world, no matter the cost. And he kind of means that literally. That teleporter thing that costs billions, so no matter the cost, it's kind of taking that literally. So it's a very interesting thing, and Cecil does a really amazing job. Now there is one part at the end that I'm sure a lot of people did not like. I'll get to that when I get to that. Right now, overall, the action and the entire set piece, the writing and everything, of course, it's all amazing. Mark's relationship with Eve grows. You see some of the characters just kind of in the background. You get introduced to some of the more celebrity cast and stuff like that do a fairly good enough job. Powerplex was pretty good. He was fun with Aaron Paul voicing him. And then you have, of course, you pick characters like Conquest and all these, characters coming into the fort to provide their voice and stuff like that, And honestly, it's amazing just the amount of work that they put into this. Now, there is a big blemish with the season so far, or at least with this season in general, and that is, of course, the animation. Now, I'm gonna be completely honest. The animation, it's not the worst, but it's noticeable. There are times where you can see maybe they do some this or that. They do some action scenes and stuff like that, but there are very glaring issues with the animation, especially compared to the first two seasons. You can really see the dip in quality up until obviously episode 7 and 8, where they really upped it up for for the sake of some of the bigger moments like the Invincible War and of course the fight against Conquest. And it's a kind of a trend that I feel like it is kind of getting more scarier as I start to realize. I'm still having PTSD thoughts about Blue Lock season 2, if you remember that whole entire fiasco, where literally the first half or almost for the entirety of the entire season of Blue Lock season 2 was just terrible animation, just literal still frames. They have literally no motion. And then it wasn't until the final two, or literally the final episode, where they stepped up and they gave us some of the most amazing, animation we've seen for a while, And I feel like it's a trend that I feel like it could happen, and I very much hope it doesn't happen. But I hope that studios don't just get lazy on the first half or even majority of the season, and then put all of their eggs on one basket into the final episode, because you're never guaranteed how much you can sustain a fan base when people don't appreciate the work that you put into it in the first place. So for them to put all their eggs in one basket into the final episode, it's kind of just telling that, yeah, we're saving it for the best moments, but we're not going to keep that same level of quality, so don't expect that from them. The only thing that is keeping Invincible great in this regard is because the story and the story beats of the show itself, the writing and everything, the story basically is so amazing. It's really good. It really gets you hooked. But yeah, once you get the animation, I believe literally every episode will be a 10 out of 10. It will literally be just amazing, right? Now, of course, I hope they do add more animation later on in the in season 4. They put a lot of their money into this project, because I know that they have enough money to do so. They just don't want to use it, which is kind of a shame. They have the power to use this to put a lot of the money into Invincible and make it the best show it could possibly be, And I hope they do that for season 4. If they do, hats off to them. But it's a matter of giving them a lot of budget, giving them plenty of time to work on the project as well, and of course making sure they're treated well. That's my always like my 3 rule for animation. It's not, don't take it personally from me. I'm not an animator, but from what I've seen, that's basically been the common 3 things. Like treat your animators well, pay them well, give them plenty of time to work on the projects. And I know these companies have a lot to, have a lot of potential to do that. They just choose not to. So I hope Amazon really like ups their ante and gives the animators what they deserve, So that's one thing, right? The final fight with Conquest was spectacular. And honestly, it's one of the best fight scenes you've seen in Invincible. Of course, matching up with, the fight against Nolan in the final episodes of season 1. And pretty much in like maybe even the first fight in episode 1 where, Nolan literally offs the Guardians of the Globe. But I will say that there is a bit of, again, coming back to the animation, there is a bit of that, like, I hope that, they keep that same level of animation throughout every fight, no matter what it is, man. Even if they're fighting against Doc Seismic, even if they're, even in the fight against, the leader of the Order, this and that, right? I just hope they keep maintaining that same level of excitement throughout the entire time. Now, the one thing I did not like about Cecil in the final episode is that he let Conquest alive, and I know that's a big sentiment that everyone pretty much agrees on, and even in the comics he does this, which I still don't understand, even in that's a character, like a characterization, like everything that we know about Cecil, and then he does that. It's just like so bizarre. Well, that's another nitpick, right? Or at least for the writing, they could change that later on, but I'm not entirely sure just how much they were willing to change that. Now, let's kind of address a little something before I end this video. Now, IGN has posted their review of Invincible, the season finale of Invincible. They give it a 4 out of 10, by the way, which is mind-boggling to me. It's honestly kind of embarrassing just to see what IGN has practically become. It almost feels like they're trolling people almost. You know how we look at these like review sites, we look at IGN, we look at Metacritic, we look at all these, right? We look at them for the source of whether or not we should be spending our hard-earned money on certain products or wasting our precious hours and time into a certain show and this and that, right? We look towards these review sites as kind of like a reference, and of course some of them could be hit or miss and this and that, right? But I think in general a lot of people do like to look at reviews either way, just kind of as a basis for whether or not they make that decision for themselves, because that if a game costs $60 to $70, then the reviews better make sure that they're at least accurate to the point where like they give it their best honest opinion, but at the same time make sure that at the very least, if it is negative, it has to be warranted. If it's positive, it has to be warranted. It has to go both ways, right? Here in this case, giving the season finale of Invincible a 4 out of 10 is very unwarranted. It's very, very, very terrible thing to do. Unanimously, people have said that this is the best episode of Invincible season 3. If anything, people are probably saying that this is probably the best episode yet of Invincible in general. And so for IGN to give it a 4 out of 10 and only explain over that the reason why is because one of the hero's dilemma hasn't been addressed, or that Conquest's appearance is like very out of nowhere and this and that. It's like, well, brother, we know that the Viltrumites have been lurking in the shadows, pretty much waiting for their opportunity to just come back and be like, hey, we gave you time, we give you this and that. It's about time we see the results. We don't see the results. What's going on? Why are you not telling the Earth? Why is this Earth not prepared for Viltrum rule? We knew you were coming. We're just not going to tell you when. And that, for me, that's more impactful than you can ever think, right? Conquest coming out of nowhere and telling Mark, like, yeah, I came here to, for stand prepared for my arrival. Worm, that's what he says, right? And that's an impactful moment because it's at Mark's lowest point in the series. The Invincibles just came out of nowhere. by Angstrom Levy. They destroy his reputation. They destroy cities. They do a lot of damage. So right now, everyone is feeling a lot of pain right now. And you think that at some point they're going to want to take a rest, maybe be like, okay, like they're gone. Angstrom Levy is gone, but we have a lot of recovery to do. We have to get to work. But Conquest won't give you that. He won't give you that rest you need. He won't give you any time to even breathe. He's just there. He just pops out of nowhere, and that's good because that brings the tension back. And that brings kind of like a realistic portrayal of like, you don't know when to expect him, but you better be prepared when he does. Because when he does, if you're not prepared, things are just going to go as bad. And the Viltrumites do not care, which, by the way, that's just amazing, right? And I just don't understand why the one who reviewed, the IGN reviewer, said that that's like not like good. Like, well, yeah, we didn't get enough time to even know the guy. We've done that with the we've done that with Anissa. You know, we've done with the other Viltrumites. How come we don't talk about them? General Krieg only appears for like a certain amount of time, and now with Conquest, all of a sudden we have to take exception to him. Man, like, this is what I'm saying, man. Like, some of the reviews are just like weird, right? But yeah, but regardless, IGN just gave it a 4 out of 10. I just don't understand why. But for me, honestly, the season finale, it's a really solid, you know, like 10 out of 10, basically almost like a 9.5 out of 10 at the very least, right? Because it is the one fight that people have been anticipating for, is the one fight that people have been waiting for, and they delivered. They did a great job with the fight. They did a great job with the animation. The voice acting was really good. The story beats were fine. Of course, the one blemish was Cecil, but that's kind of an avoidable thing because it happens in the comics too. But you can at least write a little bit to make Cecil a bit more like cautious, because we know his mentality is that he's overly cautious. You know, he met Nolan for the first time and didn't believe him first minute. Which, of course, why would you, right? Why would you believe in an alien that just came out of nowhere? You know, and so I think that they could have written that a bit more better. But regardless, the episode was a banger, no doubt about it. So IGN giving it a 4 out of 10 is just like, why? Like, it's insane. But yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on Invincible season 3. An amazing season. I hope they keep that same level of momentum with the writing in season 4. And I hope they up the ante with the animation in season 4. So with that being said, let me know what you guys think of Invincible season 3. If you've seen it, let me know what you guys think. Tell me in the comments whether you agree this is a 10 out of 10 episode, or if you don't agree with the with me or with other people, or maybe you agree with IGN and stuff like that. Let me know. I want to genuinely hear your thoughts, and let me know what you guys think about the entire season. But with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys think. I'll catch you all next time. See ya.